What's your biggest we need to leave now moment? When I was 15, a friend and I went for a lot of walks around town, small town, around 5-6k people. We were going to the cyber cafe in town to meet a few friends, and we often took different streets to get places, just to keep it interesting. We were about to go to Main Street off one of the side streets, and a man on a bicycle approached us. He got off his bike and asked us a couple small talk questions. Something didn't seem right about him. He was probably mid-40s. We both kept inching away, but didn't want to come off as too rude, so we answered about the weather or traffic. Then he paused, and we said we had to go, and he said, and I'll never forget it, "You look so young. I don't want to get in trouble, but I need to touch someone. I just need to touch you. You should come with me." And he started rambling. I just felt terror, couldn't even speak. I grabbed my friend's hand and turned. We sprinted the rest of the way to the cafe, and as soon as we were inside we asked to use the phone. I called my mom to pick us up, while my friend told the worker what happened and what the guy looked like. A month later I got my first cell phone. I've wrote about this before. I was in a mall in Indonesia and two tourists seemed to be having problems communicating with the cashier at a bookstore, so I helped translate. They wanted to buy me drinks to thank me. Told them it's not necessary and I have to get back to my mom soon. They told me to meet them for dinner. Told them I have to have dinner at home. They told me to sneak out and meet them after dinner. At this point, a bookstore staff noticed something was wrong and went up to question them. My sister and I dashed off while they were distracted. Continued wandering around the mall and realized they were following us. To see if we were just paranoid, we ducked into a lingerie store, since we figured two men won't usually need to go lingerie shopping together. They followed us in. Ran so quickly back to the jewelry store our mom was at. The store had intimidating security guards and I guess that stopped those guys. I was 11, my sister was 10. When I was a paramedic I was in a basement taking care of a shooting victim. The fire department had not arrived yet. The cop, having cleared the basement, was not with me at the time and my partner was in the ambulance getting some equipment I needed. As I was kneeling down working on my patient with 100% focus I felt a hard steel object placed on the back of my head. It was a shotgun. The shooter apparently was still in the basement and I was alone with him. He told me he shot this guy for a reason and gave me an opportunity to leave. I left. Was 15 over 16 at a house party with my good friend, another girl. There were some gate crashers who turned up, which weren't unusual at London house parties, but these guys were older and there was just a vibe. A girl I vaguely knew was very drunk and being surrounded by them, and I asked her if she was okay and she told me to flip off. I'm fine. I looked at my friend and said to her, I'm gonna call my mum and dad to come get me. Do you want a lift? My parents were always amazing and said to me that if I was at a party or out and for any reason didn't want to be where I was, I could call them and they would come and get me. My parents turned up, coats on over pajamas, and took us both home. Apparently half an hour after we left, someone was stabbed, the girl we had asked earlier was sexually assaulted, and lots of stuff was stolen, and people beaten up and held up at knife point. I had such a feel in the air that I've hardly felt before or since, and knew we needed to not be there. Was in Mexico City with family including 2 daughters. Grabbed a cab on the street around 10:00 p.m. to take us back to the hotel. I was somewhat familiar with the area since we had been there 4 or 5 days already. Cabbie totally passes the hotel district and starts heading away from the part of town we were in. Streets were getting more and more residential. I demanded that he pull over and we GTFO and walked back to the hotel, probably 3 or 4 miles. He was probably just padding the fare, but I was not going to take a chance on being kidnapped, so we flew. A couple of friends and I were outside a house party talking. I noticed out of the corner of my eye something dark behind some bushes towards the end of the block, maybe 4 houses down. It was dark out, so it was hard to tell. We stood there a bit long, and I swore I saw something again move to a tree a little closer. This wasn't the best neighborhood, heck my whole hometown isn't the safest, and I knew a couple people at the party were involved in some stuff, so I don't know if that entered my mind or what, but I got immediate goosebumps. I said let's go now. A couple of my friends looked at me weird, but later one told me they knew by the look on my face something was up. I apparently looked possessed. I had my keys, so we ran to my car and got in. I didn't even let anyone get their seatbelts on, I just hit the gas. Based on the news stories, less than probably 5 minutes later a group of people shot up the house we were at. The others standing outside were severely injured or killed. Turns out a couple guys at the party were thought to have killed someone's family member, and it was a revenge thing. This was over 20 years ago, and I still get nervous if I'm standing around outside, especially if it's dark. Sknaleveshau catastrophe. I was 5ish at a time, so it's my dad's story more than mine. You can Google the details, but long story short, my dad saw the plane jolt in the air, and he realized that something went wrong, and started running and yelling at everyone else to run. I was sitting on his shoulders, so he just took off with me. The plane crashed into the crowd, killing 77 people, 35 or so children among them. Not us. I was a teenager and my male neighbor hired my preteen sister and I to clean his apartment. I was in the middle of doing the dishes when the guy started rambling about he didn't want to hurt us, but he had a good 12 inches. I told my sister we had to go now, and she argued that we were not done and wouldn't get paid. I convinced her to leave, and we ran home where I told my dad what happened. Dad went and talked to the guy. I don't know what transpired between them, but later neighbor guy comes over with a black eye, apologized and paid us. New Year's Eve in Moscow. A dark-haired brown man was drinking with my so blonde white woman in a bar, getting friendly with some locals who tried their best to speak English. So friendly that one of them gave us a Matryoshka doll that he was going to give to his mother later that night. They seemed a little too friendly, and maybe they just were, but at one point I went to order more drinks and the bartender who had been watching and serving us gave me a stern look and said, "You should leave." Now, I found this a little strange and unexpected, so naturally tried to question what he meant, but his face was drop dead serious. He looked at the friendly group, then at my GF, then to me, and repeated his words. I didn't really want to take any chances in Russia and wanted to see another bar anyway, so I grabbed my girl, the doll, and promptly left. About 2 months ago I'd stayed up past my usual bedtime, and as soon as I got in bed I smelled something odd and was hearing some inconsistent banging and clattering from downstairs. I don't live in a great neighborhood, so none of this was unusual, but I got out of bed to check anyway and saw flames licking up the side of the building. Yelled at my wife to get out of bed and threw on some clothes and we hightailed it out. Our building has a shared wall with the next, and that one had an apartment on the ground floor fully engulfed. By the time we made it outside, ended up condemning the whole building. I was the first one to call 911. Have been jerking myself awake in the night pretty consistently since then. I was waiting for an Uber on the outskirts of Atlanta with a couple friends around 10 PM. We were just shooting the crap after leaving a nearby restaurant and talking about what bar to go to. A disheveled older man walked up a few feet behind one of my friends and struck a weird pose for 2-3 minutes while looking in our direction, and there was no one else around. Then he walked off without saying a word. He came back a few minutes later and sat down on the sidewalk about 5 feet away from us. At this point I'm just wondering if he wants something from us, because there was absolutely no other reason to plop down that close to us on an empty sidewalk. Then a small sedan pulls in a nearby parking lot, parking behind some bushes in the spot closest to us, and consequently furthest from any of the shops in that lot. I only noticed because I happened to be facing that direction, but then saw 6 guys pile out of the sedan and immediately cross the street directly towards us. I realized there were not any shops or restaurants still open nearby. It suddenly occurred to me that the strange dude might have been sizing us up when he was watching us earlier, and he came back to mark us. We were all dressed nice with smartphones out and watches visible, basically the fanciest stuff we had for a night out. Right as I started to speak up that we should head back towards other people, our Uber pulled up to the curb. As we drove away, I watched those 6 guys talking in a circle where we had just been standing, and then they crossed the street again and got back in their car. I'll never have a definitive answer, but I'm pretty sure we were 10 seconds away from some unfortunate shenanigans. About a decade ago, I was driving my Miata with a friend to a track about 4 hours from home. We left after dinner the night before, so we could wake up there and get an early start. About an hour from our destination, 11 PM, a crazy summer storm hit. Heavy rain, high wind gusts, lots of debris. I told my buddy that early 90s windshield wipers couldn't keep up, I couldn't see crap, and I just felt like I was white knuckling the steering wheel. I decided to hit the exit. We'd get some late night food at a Waffle House and wait out the storm. We sat down and I had a TV in sight and I was casually watching. Almost immediately, a weather map came up and showed a tornado pass right over where we would have been a few minutes later had I not exited. In college, there was a big rock/cliff at the top of a hill that everybody used to climb. It had lights pointing at it to light it up at night. Some friends and I decided to climb up to the top at night. It was a nice evening, but there was a chance of rain. So we get to the top and I see lightning in the distance. I count the time between lightning and thunder. 15 seconds. I tell my friends, hey, that storm is coming our way, and I'm guessing we have 15-20 minutes before it gets here. It took some convincing for them to agree that, even though I was being a negative Nancy, we would head back down. Getting down took about 15 minutes. Just before we got to the cars, lightning hit the rock and blew out all the lights. At a party, when I was about 19, I was on the top floor with my friend and he mentioned to me that he and the guy in the corner had been in a pretty nasty fight about a year ago. That guy is giving us some eyes and staring us down. My friend said not to worry, but I did not like the vibe this guy was giving. I saw the guy talk to his friend and send him out of the room. I told my buddy, nope, we are leaving now. Much to his protest, as there was a girl he liked at this party. I practically ran down the stairs, grabbed our other friend by the hood of his sweatshirt, and ran to the car. As we are backing out of this long country driveway, I see the guy, his buddy and 4 or 5 more of them run out of the house with baseball bats and they chased us down the driveway. So damn glad we got out of there when we did. I was in college when I had my first solo apartment. This guy across the hall would come over or invite me over and we'd hang out a few times. However, I would not call him a friend. One night he asks me to loan him some money. In addition to not wanting to loan him money, I don't really have any, so he proceeds to ask for a ride to see his girlfriend because she has some money for him. I agree. We arrive at our apartment and a small party is going on. When we walked into the party, everyone immediately shuts up and stares at us. He runs off to find his girlfriend, who I find out is his ex-girlfriend. It is awkward because I'm kind of this guy's friend by association and I'm getting lots of angry stares. He gets into an argument with her and we are basically thrown out of this place. He then asks if I can take him to another part of town. He owes another guy some money and needs to go talk to him. We proceed to an unfamiliar part of town and he instructs me to park in a fairly isolated spot. He explains that he doesn't want the other guy to see my car because he might take it. He owes this guy money for gambling or drugs or something else bad and he is way behind on his payments. I left him and spent the rest of my time in that apartment avoiding him. I work as an engineer in a data center cooling plant. We are responsible for basically everything in the building: mechanical, electrical, HVAC, plumbing. So the engineer I'm relieving tells me there's an odd sound coming from the Con-Ed vaults. This is where these huge transformers are that step down from 26,000 volts or so to a voltage the building can actually use. We are not allowed in those vaults. They're locked and only Con-Ed has their key. So he leaves and I take a walk by the vaults. I had never actually heard electricity arcing through the air before, but I knew I was hearing it then. I called Con Ed's emergency line and told them to get out there as soon as possible. A crew of 2 guys show up. They seemed calm and disinterested in the elevator on the way up. It's probably just a contact chattering, they said. We get off the elevator and start heading down the hall. The sound was way louder now. We weren't even near the vaults and there was no mistaking it. Both guys stopped dead in their tracks and kind of hunkered down. I saw the color drain from them. Wasted no time getting back in that elevator. If you've never seen video of a large transformer explosion, go check YouTube. These transformers are not like the ones you see up on utility poles. They're as big as a couple of trucks stacked on top of each other. Anyone on the floor when one of them cooked off would be gone, and we have 8 of them. Grocery shopping with my grandma. She's tired, normal for her, but she's getting a bit slower and dragging her leg more than usual. At the checkout counter I saw her face was a little droopy, and I said we are leaving now and going to her. They gave her a bottle of water for the car ride, which she ended up choking on and vomiting up all the water. Called ahead to her, so they were ready and they took care of her as soon as possible. She was having a stroke and they were able to help her quick enough so that she didn't have any long-lasting issues. Posted this before, but was very late to the party. I was on a date with a girl hiking a trail system that I knew like the back of my hand. Something felt weird, but I shook it. We went in around sunset. We were going to swim in one of the deep pools in the creek. Maybe 2 miles into the trail I get the feeling again, and she's talking her head off, but I was just listening to everything around me. I told her to stop talking, and she looked at me very concerned. I just put my finger to my lips and listened. I heard something familiar, but I couldn't place it. We never stopped walking. We came to the arroyo just before the creek pool, and I heard it again. By this time I knew. I told her we were going to walk to the clearing where the arroyo was at and turn around. She told me she heard something weird. As we came to the clearing we stood there like statues, dead silent. Her nails cut my arm from gripping it so hard. Then around 15 feet from us, the biggest mountain lion I've ever seen crossed the clearing with 2 of its young. She looked at us, and as our eyes met, my soul left my body, and I felt her grip tighten around my arm even tighter. She stopped and so did her babies. I'm guessing she sized us up, and then just kept going. The babies kept turning around looking at us, but ultimately they just slowly crossed the top of the hill and that was that. We turned around and told everyone we saw on the way in that there was 3 mountain lions on the trail. They all turned around and left. That was the first time I was ever scared out in nature. I didn't have a handgun on me. I had been there 100 times. She told me the sound she heard was a deep purring, and that was what I kept hearing also. I just hadn't put it together. Like and subscribe for more videos.